This is Simplify 1918, and man, I just love having chit chats with PETA members. They are funny as can be because they think vegan is the way to go. Well, the problem is veganism is not the way to go. I'm not going to get into all the points there are, but I'm going to point out a couple of things. First and foremost, there's plenty of research done behind it. When PETA pulls up articles from PETA website itself, I'm like, no, I want stuff from articles from outside that's scientific research papers. I want actual hardcore data. Well, here's an example. They did vegan burgers. They took 19 or 18 different sets of vegan burgers. Yes, vegan burgers. Completely plant-based, and compared them to grass-fed. I'm not talking about GMO fed or anything like that. I'm talking about grass-fed beef. With the grass-fed beef in the article, and that's pediatrics article from from pediatrics as well as other stuff too. That's just one of the articles. They pointed out that the grass-fed beef was 90%, not a little bit, but 90% more nutritional than your plant-based burger. That's one example. And on top of that, it also has other nutrients and vitamins and things that you can't get in plants that you can through meat. Secondly, the reason why veganism, 80 to 85% quit within 5 years, is not just due to peer pressure, but it's also due to health-related stuff as well. And I'll explain that to you because there's also article after article after article after article. You have to look for it because they're going to hide it because, Google and all that stuff wants to hide this information. But if you do the research and find it, you'll find that with veganism, 100 years ago, you might have been able to get away with it. But today, no way. And the reason why is because, and as an example, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as an example, I think it is corn that is 40% more nutrient dense 100 years ago than it is today. The reason why is because we got glyphosate, which we've been using 4 to 8 times more powerful than we did back in the 70s and 80s when they first started using it. On top of that, it killed all the microbiome in the ground. Also, glyphosate works by hiding the nutrients, so like your weeds and stuff can't grab a hold of it. And same thing with your GMO crops and all that stuff. Sure, it can withstand the pesticide, but how much nutrients is it really pulling from the ground? Like your, as an example, your B vitamins or whatever it is that it sees in the ground that it needs to pull. You got to understand plants and how plants work in order for you to understand the second half. Like I was saying, how dense is your food today? The third thing is the way they process a lot of stuff today is completely different than it was 100 years ago. Now, granted, I do get the beef from the stores and stuff like that, and that's because with the plant or the grass-fed beef and all that stuff, it's a little bit harder for me to get because, well, I don't have the room or the capacity for it. So I have to go buy with what I can get at discount prices and so on and so forth. However, if you have the option of getting grass-fed beef, absolutely, 100%. Second thing is, well, another point that I want to point out is a lot of people don't do their research or their homework. Something they don't know what they're talking about, so they make false premises. Like, I get it. Leather, yeah, they use a lot of chemicals and so on and so forth, but there is ways of processing it without using those dangerous chemicals, which the Native Americans did for thousands of years. And there's other countries that do the same thing too without using the harsh chemicals to make leather. Does it last long? I don't know. But I'm just saying that they had processes that they would use. Granted, it's going to sound gross, but they would use urine as an example, or some other things that they would use to help it do what it's had to do in order to become leather. And yes, do I absolutely think we should be taking care of our animals? Absolutely. But animals are grown to help us out too. There's even gorillas and orangutans and all those. I guarantee you, if they have an opportunity to smack a mouse and eat it, they'll eat it. They find an animal that's meat, that's dead, they'll take an opportunity of doing it. Bugs and all that stuff too. But yet, you got people that are like, well, that's the animal kingdom. We're not the animal kingdom, but yet they're telling us we're primates. It's like, can't have it both ways. Can't have your cake and eat it too. Another thing too, think of this. Eggs. Why have eggs been so controversial? I'll tell you why they've been controversial. I've been looking at it, and I realized farm-raised organic eggs, where the chickens get out and eat the bugs and all this other stuff too, guess what? Those are nutrient-dense packed eggs that have your vitamin B12, B6, riboflavin, I can't pronounce it right. It's also got zinc, vitamin D, all these other, including iron too, that it is healthy for you. And you say, well, what about the cholesterol? Well, guess what? That cholesterol that's in it is good for you because it helps out the brain, and it's good for the liver. And going to that point there, the controversy went all the way up to the 1990s, and they had false claims that your vegetable oil was better for you than beef tallow, which they cooked your fries and all that stuff in beef tallow. Well, guess what? Your body can handle the beef tallow. Vegetable oil was modern processed stuff that your body cannot handle. That's why you got a lot of people that are fat, because they eat garbage food, processed food. And yes, I got a little bit of chunky butt myself, and that's because I'm not able to exercise like I used to be able to keep the weight off. And plus, my metabolism's slowing down and all kinds of stuff. And I'm trying to eat healthier. Like the last couple of days, I ended up making fajitas. And I try to get a little bit of veggies in there. So when I eat steak, I have the mashed potatoes, not with gravy, but mashed potatoes. Throw a little bit of seasoning on it. And then I have, I don't know, green beans or corn, things of that nature. I'll have salads and things of that nature too. So the thing is the bottom line is with diets, you have to be careful with what you're looking at, with what you're eating, and with what you're going with. You have to do your research. You have to know why they say what they say and what it is. Like, going back to that whole, beef tallow versus vegetable oil, well, guess what? McDonald's paid $15 million to do the quote-unquote research to move to vegetable oil. Well, guess what? They made a ton of money off of that. Why? Because it's cheaper to use than beef tallow for some reason. I don't know why. But there again, it's a way for them to make money. So, that said being done, I use olive oil when I cook my food. I don't really use a whole lot of butter. That's another one too. Good butter is good for you. Your sour cream is good for you because it has a microbiome. Milk. Another reason why milk is not always exactly the greatest for you is because, well, they kind of process it these days. And yes, are there times where you can get sick from it? Absolutely. But here's the thing. With cow's milk directly from the cow, that's why a lot of farmers did not get sick all the time. In fact, they got sick far less than your city folk. The reason being is because in the milk, it's got that good, dense nutrients and bacteria that your body needs. You have to feed your body what your body needs. And here's another thing too. Everybody is different. So what works for me for a diet does not work for you. Some people can sustain themselves on plants their whole lives because they don't need a whole lot. Yes, are there vegans that are vegans for life? Absolutely. There's some 20 plus year vegans. Well, guess what? It is what it is. I knew a guy who's very healthy, but there again, he would supplement sometimes and have foods like yogurt and stuff like that. Why? Because he's a vegetarian, not a vegan. Because vegetarianism is actually more sustainable than veganism. Now, another reason why I say veganism is unsustainable is because just take a look at the farmland that they got to use for it. Okay, how much more farmland would they have to create by taking homes away from animals to grow crops? Where if you do it properly with cows and cattle, like these farmers do, they have 1,000 acres and they got, I don't remember how many heads of cattle, but I'll tell you what, their dairy cows are very happy and they produce a lot more milk than if they weren't. Same thing with the beef cattle. Their beef cattle go out there, munch on some what we call weeds is actually nutritious for them. So the GMO crops, and guess what? They are far more healthier, get sick less, and don't need vaccines. And on top of that, they produce way more better nutritional beef than your conventional farms do, where they raise a ton of cattle in a small area and put them in the feed stalls and give them GMO crops and stuff like that. Because the stuff they give them is to fatten them up before they cut them up to get that nice marbling. Now, you want the lean beef, get your grass-fed beef. I tell you what, it'll be a lot healthier for you. So, I know this is a long video, about 13 minutes long, but please, go outside, do your research, know what works for you and why. Like, subscribe, make comments, and if you want, I can post up a couple of articles down in the comment section. Just let me know, and I'll post them underneath. And Semper Fi 1918 out.